Welcome to 6GWorld, where we talk about what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow with the evolution towards 6G, and how we reach that sanely and safely from here. I'm Alex Lawrence. I'm the managing editor at 6GWorld, and with me today to talk is Brendan O'Reilly, the group CTO at BAI Communications. Thanks very much for being here, Brendan.
No, thanks for having me, Alex.
So we're here essentially to have a chat about private networks, but would you like to sort of give a brief introduction to who BAI Communications is for those that don't know?
Yeah, so BAI Communications is a company that has businesses in a number of markets: Australia, Hong Kong, US, Canada, and the UK. And we provide infrastructure for our customers, mainly the MNOs and the FNOs, to be able to serve their customers. So we provide infrastructure in places like the metro system in New York. We've recently won a procurement to do a similar exercise in London with TfL and in Hong Kong. And we also provide broadcast infrastructure in Australia. So we're a partner of those companies who serve consumer and business customers, and one, hopefully that our customers trust to be able to do a great job for them and help them meet the needs, the ever-growing needs of their customers.
Brilliant, thanks, Brendan. So one thing I'd be interested to find out, the 5G ACIA has been quite forthright talking about what they would need from 6G, and one of the things that they've talked about is the need for 6G to be easier to deploy and manage as private networks, and to build that in as part of the specification. So I'd be interested to understand, when you're looking at the 4G and 5G networks, what the biggest challenge is for your clients, and what you would like to see changing as the standard evolves.
Yeah, I think if we think of private networks as a thing that need to be delivered in a time and a place, we're probably missing the greater opportunity. So I don't disagree that 6G will absolutely bring benefits from a private network point of view, but private networks have been around for a number of years, whether that be a Wi-Fi network in an office or a factory that enterprise is using to be able to help run its business. What the advantages of doing it with 4G and 5G now is that we're able to provide a much richer solution for private networks, which isn't really a technology challenge, it's more a use case challenge. So how do we make sure that we deliver the outcomes that are required? And whether that be in the example of a port where there's a supply chain challenge that needs to be met, or whether that's in a hospital or a university campus where it could be delivering a number of mission critical services to be able to help the likes of the healthcare providers or education providers be able to meet their needs. So I think the challenge for private networks at the moment is actually less technology based and more finding the right partners to work with to be able to deliver those business outcomes that are required.
Okay, that's actually really good to hear as a sanity check, because certainly over the course of the last year or two, we've been hearing an enormous amount about the evolution of edge networking and potentially how that might fit into private network propositions and so on. So even potentially the integration of sort of cloud, edge, and enterprise IT. But is that something that then you're actually hearing from the enterprise side, or is that more just a solution looking for a problem to solve?
No, we're absolutely seeing it. And if you look at some of the private networks that are being deployed across the globe, they're absolutely focused on meeting an outcome, and therefore you find the right technology. And Edge has a huge role to play in that. I mentioned ports earlier on in supply chain, being able to have that data closer to the edge of the network, and reducing that latency means that you are able to meet some of those needs in a way that we weren't able to do maybe even 2-3 years ago. So the fact that telco networks and IT are coming together, which has been a trend that we've been talking about in the industry for as long as I can remember, but you're really seeing it now. And I think 5G is the point in our technology roadmap where bringing those together is easier than it has been before because of the technology that's available. But also, in terms of the things we've been through as a across the globe in the last 16 to 18 months, that acceleration of digitizing businesses, moving online, being able to meet the ever-changing needs, whether that be from a transit authority who needs to understand the footfall on train carriages, or whether that be, a shopping centre looking at keeping people safe and social distancing, edge and AI, and that whole IT cloud. That whole IT cloud piece is really helping facilitate that in a way that it hasn't been before. So I actually think, for a while it has been a solution looking for a problem, but what we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months is the enterprises themselves pushing, because they do have specific challenges that need solving. And edge is a big part of that, but bringing that together with their own private networks will now help accelerate businesses as they come out of this pandemic and move forward and look to expand into new markets and into new geographies.
Okay, that's really useful. So, if we're thinking about edge, that's clearly something with a potentially quite a long evolution runway. And we've talked very briefly about AI in the same breath. Do you see any other technologies emerging that kind of aren't necessarily directly related to the network, but which encourage that kind of private network adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few, and I think again, it's less about the technology itself, and it's more to do with the problem that you're trying to solve. So we're working with a partner at the moment, who we can't name because we're under NDA. But one of the things that they're looking at is how do you provide coverage in areas where the MNOs don't traditionally play, but be able to offer that up to the public, so over time. So it might be a private 5G hotspot today, but in time, how could that become a public 5G hotspot? And how do you balance the workload between the public and the private network? We announced last week a deal with Signify, who were previously Philips Lighting, at how can we use lighting infrastructure to be able to provide connectivity. So I think you see things like that, LoRaWAN, that all of these technologies coming together. But I think at the heart of it, when you sit down with a potential client and a customer, it's about agreeing what the outcomes are that you're both striving to achieve, and then finding the right technology to fit it. Some of the things that we're talking to people about today can absolutely be done with Wi-Fi and 4G. But as you move and progress, what you don't want to happen is you build one network and then in 2 years' time have to build a second. So future-proofing our networks is absolutely vital to us, not just because it means we're doing the job right from the first time, but also that for our customers, it means they have that ability over time to be able to upgrade. And then if you're talking to a big enterprise and they have a private network, the other thing that's really important to them is that it's neutral, and we're a big neutral host organization, but having neutral private networks is important as well, because as their needs change, if they've got a contract with one MNO and they want to be able to change to another, they don't want the private network that they've built to be a reason why they can't be flexible. So that flexibility in the network is really important as well.
Okay, and I guess when we're talking about that, then the implication is presumably that as much would be virtualized as possible, sort of running over regular servers and so on, so that you've got that at least as much as possible. Maybe with some of the infrastructure there are going to be legacy challenges, but kind of reducing that risk to the business.
Yeah, I think that's right. Virtualization will play a key part in it, and for the flexibility reasons that I mentioned, but also, you know, as I said at the start, we've got private networks. So if you're a large enterprise and you've already invested in a network, what you don't want to do is be doing that every 3-4 years. You want to know that what you're putting in today has that flex to be able to adopt and adapt. So I think virtualization will play a key role. We're beginning to, with some of our clients to talk about the role that Open RAN will play for them as well. Not just from an M&O point of view, but also, if they've got needs and they're using Open RAN, how can they move between the layers and be able to swap between vendors? So I think the open architecture and the virtualization trends that we've seen over the last couple of years are vital for private networks moving forward.
That's really interesting to see. I mean, in many ways, it sounds then as though the private networks are going to be, if anything, a step or two ahead of many of the operators in terms of the nature of their infrastructure.
I think possibly. I'd caveat it by saying that the scale that the operators have around the world means that they will drive the virtualization and Open RAN standards. So, without them, Vodafone made their announcement recently in the UK. I think it's 2,500 Open RAN sites. Without the big MNOs putting their scale behind it, it will be hard. But I do think you'll see private networks adapt very quickly to the flexibility that these types of initiatives have. And I think you will start to see Open RAN private networks being deployed this calendar year.
Fantastic. And talking about the integration and orchestration between the public and private networks, the impression I get is that the more complexity, the more orchestration required, and it'd be really useful to understand, how that works and whether there are, challenges that still need to be worked through and kinks to iron out there.
I think there definitely are, and I think part of that again comes down to what is the challenge or the opportunity that you're trying to solve. So if you take the example of a private network, a neutral host private network, and then that enterprise has a contract with an MNO for its public mobile offering, how do you get the two to work together? How do you have to do something different with the handsets? Do you have to be able to optimize the private network in conjunction with the public network? And I think that's something that as an industry we're still working through. A lot of that I think will come as we start to deploy these networks at pace. But also I think you see the MNOs themselves across the globe all beginning to deploy private networks. BT announced they were looking at a neutral host private network last week. Vodafone, Verizon, AT&T, all of these big players are looking at these private networks. And I think as they start to move into it more, and with the likes of ourselves who are providing this for enterprises, you'll start to see that collaboration come. And we'll have to look at standards for how we do this. And but again, each case will be different. So we've got to make sure it adheres to the standards. But there's no point us trying to deliver something that isn't right for the customer. So always having that customer outcome at the center and at the heart of what we do is vital.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of those outcomes and so on, just looking ahead over the course of the coming decade, I'd be interested to understand sort of where you see either the biggest change coming in what BAI is going to be doing, or the questions it's going to need to answer for the clients.
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity as an industry that we face at the moment is the idea of smart communities. I think we've been talking about smart cities for a number of years, and I think, if I'm honest, from a consumer point of view, that's quite a scary concept. How smart is our city going to be? What needs to be out there? Am I being watched by Big Brother all of the time? Whereas the concept of smart communities, of helping pockets of communities across cities or rurally be able to enhance what it is they're doing, whether that be from a social interaction point of view, whether that be from a business outcome point of view, I think is really important. And as you build these communities up, actually eventually you will get to a smart city. But I think the concept of smart cities is one that people can get behind, whether that be from a health point of view, a socio-economic point of view, an education point of view. Now, the technology that we have today will help, but as we evolve through to 6G, and we're talking about, I think the latest article I read was 6G could be 50 times quicker than 5G. Now, that's exciting, but the latency itself and being able to do things in more real time will again help with things like traffic management solutions. Will be able to help more with like dynamic footfall calculations. So I see us, the roadmap that we're on is a really exciting one, but as long as we don't lose that concept of delivering for smart communities and building these communities up, then I think we're at the start of a very exciting time in our industry that 5G will absolutely deliver. And as we move through the Gs, we will see that evolve.
That's fantastic. That's a really exciting vision, I think, for especially sort of smart communities and trying to reintegrate the humanity, I guess, put that at the center of things.
Technology is there to make our lives easier, and I think if we keep that, if we keep that ethos that it's here to enhance the lives of the people around us, and if we do that in the right way, it will make everybody's lives better, then I think we've got a really, not just a great technology outcome, which I'm obviously excited about, but a really great social outcome as well.
Fantastic. Well, Brendan O'Reilly, thank you ever so much for your time on this. It's been fascinating.
No, thank you for having me.